Hey guys, my name is Robbie and I'll be your moderator today on behalf of NSET2 in its newest webinar in the series Building a Startup Nation. So we will be hosting three very innovative entrepreneurs today that all have experience with entrepreneurship at the university level. And I'm a student entrepreneur just like you guys, so I'm very excited to hear this. So just some reminders before we really get started. The slides and the presentation are going to be available on nset2.org. Expect them to be available about 24 hours after this webinar concludes. They'll be on YouTube, so you'll get the full sense of what's going on, not just the slides. And feel free to contact us if you have any questions about us as an organization or our activities at support@nset2.org. We would love to hear from you. Speaking of hearing from you, at the end of the presentations of the speakers, so the last half hour or so, from 1:30 to 2 of the presentation, we are going to be having a Q&A section. So you guys can put your questions in the questions box at any time during the presentation, and our lovely producer Audrey will keep track of them and will present them to the speakers after they end their presentations. So just drop the question in there and we'll see it, don't worry. And you can do it at any time, again. So a little bit about the series. This webinar series started as a result of the necessity to educate people about the importance of building a startup nation, of the importance of startups in our nation's economy and the importance of innovation, especially in the context of universities, because the people who are starting entrepreneurial activities in the university level are going to be the people who are the future business leaders of America. So that's probably a bunch of you guys in the audience. So hopefully this will be the first step towards connecting student entrepreneurs with people who've already had that level of experience and continue to have that level of experience. And in today's webinar is certainly going to address that. Now, also, the series is so great because it connects people who have that experiential learning to people who don't have that yet, which is kind of the entire goal of college in itself, right? So it's kind of like a university experience outside of a university. And the idea is that it also connects you with potential VCs and angel investors. So it's a great way to build your network too, because you can also, these guys are great. They can answer your questions. Great sources of information. Don't be afraid to ask a question. Now about NSET2 as an organization, NSET2 stands for the National Council of Entrepreneurial Tech Transfer. And basically what we do is we connect all aspects of entrepreneurship together to try to get more representation in Congress and levels of legislation in the government by basically connecting us all the entrepreneurial pieces together. One way we do this is through a conference that we have. It's a quarterly conference, and that's going to be occurring from April 18th to the 20th. And hopefully we'll see some of you there. And there we're going to be connecting university startups with VCs, angels, and companies, and also staffers at the congressional level. So without further ado, I'd like to present today's presenters. Little bit blurbs about each one. Gary Mattson is the co-founder, president, and CEO of his company Pro Transit Nanotherapy. Danny Vessels is the co-founder and CEO of his company Fathom. And Joseph Nelson is the co-founder and CEO of his company Represently. And they all have very different and very amazing presentations to present to you. So without further ado, I'll present you Gary Mattson.
Thank you, Robbie. Can you see my screen?
Now we can. Yep.
Excellent. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce you to my company, Pro Transit Nanotherapy. We are a nanoparticle-based drug delivery technology, and our technology we've named ProNT. First of all, a little bit about me. I've got my PhD from Creighton Medical School here in Omaha. I spent 30 years at different companies working on the development, launch, and support of all different kinds of biotech products. So I've worked in that space my entire career. More recently, I came to Omaha as entrepreneur in residence at Unimed Corporation, and Unimed is the tech transfer group from the University of Nebraska Medical Center here in Omaha. And so based on my experience of launching many biotech products, they thought I would be a good resource to have here to help others develop their technology and build companies around that. My co-founder is Vinod Labshitwar. He's a professor at the Cleveland Clinic. He's a well-known researcher in the field of nanomedicine, has been doing this for over 30 years, and has dozens of publications and many patents. Our technology is based upon his patents that we've licensed both through Unimed and the Cleveland Clinic. So what is our technology? First of all, we have a nanoparticle that is a biodegradable and biocompatible substance. So you don't have to worry about it building up in the body because it naturally degrades. And as it degrades, it gradually releases its cargo, so it has this sustained release profile. Our first application that we'll talk more about is on skincare, and so we've shown that it does penetrate into the skin and delivers active enzymes into the skin. And what we're doing here basically is replenishing the body's natural ability to control free radicals. Now, free radicals are at the center of many diseases. I didn't realize this when I first started the project. When I came into this, I knew very little about free radicals, and Vinod was really the one that had done a lot of research in the field. So just to get the company started, he and I put money in. We founded the company. We licensed the technology from Unimed. We then, I then had a couple of friends that were willing to put their money into the company. So we had a total of about $100,000 there. We then got a matching grant from the state of Nebraska. And then another group came in, the Invest Nebraska organization, also invested in the company. So we had a total of about $300,000 to work on the application of our technology in skincare. And so the state has been very helpful. Unimed has been very helpful, and we appreciate all the support they've given us. So what we do basically is encapsulate the superoxide dismutase and catalase enzymes, and then those we deliver to our targets, and they neutralize free radicals, and we've shown this in many model systems. Free radicals are at the center of many diseases I mentioned before, and here's a little more detailed breakdown. The areas that we're particularly interested in at the moment are in neurological tissue like brain and spinal cord. We have applications in stroke and spinal cord injury I'll talk about in a minute. We also, as I said, have work going on in skin, primarily driving aging and the development of skin cancer. So why did we go into this field? Well, first of all, it's non-FDA regulated, so we can get to market fairly quickly. It's also a huge market opportunity. There's over $10 billion spent in either sun care or anti-aging. And the anti-aging skincare market that you see at the bottom there is probably the newest and fastest growing of all the skincare markets there are. And so what have we done with the system? Well, based on the money I mentioned before, we showed in 5 different model systems, both here in the US and in Europe, that our technology really works. For example, we've shown that it does penetrate, it gets down into the epidermis and delivers these active enzymes to fight the free radical damage. Those enzymes are, as I said before, present already, but they're not in sufficient quantities to prevent the excessive amount that develops under, let's say, sunbathing or daily bright light exposure. And so we're able to control that free radical damage, and we've shown this in tissue sections and the ability to show reduced DNA damage. And so we think that we will be able to prevent the development of skin cancer as well, all without any toxic side effects. So the other thing that we're working actively on is spinal cord injury. And it may seem odd, but spinal cord injury is also driven to a large extent by the development of free radicals in the spine upon injury. Now, this disease and condition is primarily in younger adults, very active people. People are out riding their motorcycles or their bicycles or aggressively driving their cars or whatever. There's over 12,000 new cases every year, and it's very expensive. You see the numbers on the screen, to both the economy and to the individuals, the insurance companies. It affects the whole family because now they have to take care of somebody who's in a wheelchair, and there's really not effective therapy available. This methylprednisone is not very effective, and it's also very toxic. So we think we have pretty much a greenfield opportunity if we can show work that we can improve the condition of spinal cord injury victims. To do that, we've recently received a Department of Defense grant for about $1.7 million over 3 years, and it's a collaboration between us at Pro-Transit Nanotherapy, where we're doing scale-up of the Pro-NP. We're embedding human antibodies into our nanoparticles, and we're doing this under CGMP production conditions. The other part, then, we're going to hand those nanoparticles off to Vinod at the Cleveland Clinic. He's going to repeat some work he's already done with a rat model using our scaled-up nanoparticles, and if that works, we're then going to hand it off to Dr. Kwan at the University of British Columbia to do a mini-pig study. And all these results will be wrapped together and submitted to the FDA in order to get authorized an IND or a clinical trial in humans. So that's just a little bit about Pro-Transit Nanotherapy, and I look forward to answering any questions you have later in the webinar.
Okay, thank you very much, Gary. Now on to the next speaker. We have Danny Vessels. Danny, just so you know,
right.
You're speaking. Okay, there you go.
Yep. No problem. Yeah, so my name is Danny Vessels, like Robbie said. I'm a co-founder at a company called Fathom, where we're creating the future of underwater adventure right here in the Midwest and Western Michigan. So I grew up spending my summers on a lake in northern Michigan, and like many lakes in Michigan and around the Midwest, used to be used for logging. And so what would happen is that now 200 years later, all the cottages have these artifacts, which are basically tools that loggers used back in the 1800s as part of their work. But I always grew up hearing that there were other things stuck in the lake, like horse-drawn carriages, not small little pieces, not the little tools that washed up on beaches, but large horse-drawn carriages that got stuck underwater at the bottom of the lake that wouldn't wash up on beaches. Now, my lake is 150 feet deep in a lot of places, so it's a little bit too deep to dive down. I wasn't scuba certified. I didn't have thousands of dollars to spend on any underwater remote operated vehicle or ROV. So that's really what started and helped me come up with the inspiration for the Fathom 1. So the Fathom 1 is an underwater drone that's portable, affordable, modular, extremely easy to use, and really built for anybody to explore the underwater world. All you have to do is plug the drone into its Wi-Fi buoy, turn it on, and launch the Fathom app. From there, you can see what the drone sees and control where it goes, all from a dry location. So what we're really doing is taking a world that is usually and used to be off limits for most people, and allowing anybody that wants to explore it. So you don't have to have years of experience or thousands of dollars anymore. So the Fathom 1 is composed of a few main components: a built-in 1080p camera right on front, 2 high-intensity LEDs, a shell that reinforces the hull so it can go down to depths of 150 feet, and a tri-thruster patent-pending configuration that is completely modular. So this allows the thrusters to be removed from the drone, so it's easy to transport, easy to pack, easy to repair, as well as customize and upgrade. So what this means is there's a lot of opportunities for us in the future to develop some attachments that can fit on the base model and increase your experience as a customer, as a user, to kind of use the drone in brand new ways without buying a brand new unit. So our team was founded, excuse me, with 3 individuals back when we were juniors in college. We came up with the idea, and it kind of spun into an engineering project. We were all in the sciences. John and I on the right were in engineering, so it turned into an engineering project as a capstone to try to build an underwater drone that we could use. It very quickly turned into this could be a business. This is something that we're developing, and a lot of people seem to be very interested in what we're doing, so why not try to make it into a business and sell these? So we started out with very little business knowledge and experience, but we've been a part of a lot of different communities and programs and events that have helped us gain experience in the area and continue developing as business individuals, and business-minded individuals. So some of these that I can highlight are the Greenlight Business Model Competition, Accelerate Michigan Innovation Competition, MWest Challenge. All these are examples of undergraduate and college student business model competitions. So basically, I'm sure many of you know about this, but you formulate a pitch for your business, a general business model for it, and you present an application, and then you get up and pitch in front of some judges and hope they pick you to win. So we did, I don't even know how many of these we did, but we did quite a few of them in our undergraduate years. And that really is a lot of that is what helped us get off the ground and running and able to use some of these funds that we won in order to develop the project on our own without any outside funding or what little money we had as college students to spend on tech and things like that. So one of the early ones we won was a 5x5 night in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is basically 5 minutes to pitch, 5 slides with a chance to win $5,000. So we won that back about 1.5 years ago probably, and we used that $5,000 to buy a 3D printer that we used in a lot of our rapid prototyping that we do here, which is integral to any hardware or tech startup. You really need to do rapid and iterative prototyping. So that is what allowed us to go at such a fast pace that you need to when you're in a tech startup. But we also participated in a lot of incubators, accelerators, such as GR Current Accelerator, which is right here in Grand Rapids, and connected us with a lot of young professionals and more experienced professionals in the startup scene, and allowed us to gain a lot of experience and start getting our feet under us as to what we were doing in the startup space and how we could continue forward. We were also part of the Yale Entrepreneurial Institute, which connected us with a lot of helpful resources out at Yale, and also the Hope College Entrepreneurial Program, which is where we went to school in West Michigan, and really where we started out. So that's where we kind of grew up and as a company, and we transitioned over to Grand Rapids, which is about half an hour away from where we went to school, and that's where a lot of our connections and resources have been. And those resources kind of extend very readily into the advisors. So a lot of what we noticed very quickly was that we were young, didn't have a lot of experience, and we had gaps that we needed to fill. So rather than trying to tackle all this on our own, we decided you need to find advisors that can help you out. So whether it's from sales and distribution, former CEOs, investment management advice, customer service, accounting, law, all of these facets of having a startup are things that you don't necessarily have any knowledge on when you start out, but you find advisors that can help you along the way and get you kind of up to speed on what is going on in the field and what you need to know as someone that's got a startup and is working towards making it into a larger business. So on to kind of the exciting part, we launched our Kickstarter campaign back August this past year. It raised about $200,000 on that Kickstarter campaign. And then through various other outlets, we've secured a letter of intent from a distributor in Europe that amounts to about $2.1 million revenue a year just through distributing to retail stores in Europe. So there's a lot of cool things that we're excited to work towards in the coming years and really the coming months because everything moves so quickly with us. And so it's a very exciting time here. We're doing a lot of things. We're wearing a lot of hats like any other startup will tell you. Everybody wears a ton of different hats and does a lot of different things from a day-to-day basis. So lots of things going on. But another kind of cool part about being a startup is looking at things like exit strategies. So this is the idea of larger companies that could possibly acquire your company and use either the technology you've created or a process you've created to further their own business by purchasing part or some of your business, of your startup. So for us, it's looking at people like Google, DJI, who makes the Phantom and the Mavic Pro, Intel, Parrot, GoPro, all these type of companies that are obviously much larger than ours, but have money to spend on helping accelerate their own business and getting new verticals in their own business as well. So it's an exciting part for us, but it's very forward thinking in the startup world. So thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you guys have some questions that I can answer at the end of the conversation. And with that, I can turn it back over to Robbie.
Thank you very much, Danny. That was a great presentation. And now I'd like to move on to our third and final speaker of the night, Joseph Nelson.
Thanks so much, Robbie. So Joseph Nelson, I'm the co-founder and I run the day-to-day operations at Represently. I'll start with introducing a bit about myself, our company, and then why starting in university provides somewhat of an unfair advantage given the amount of resources that you can take advantage of, both of what Gary and Danny have touched on and then our specific ways that those resources helped us grow. So I run Represently and I'll run through why starting in college is the best thing for any young enterprise. So first and foremost, the company that I'm building is a better way for civic influencers, which we define as anyone, to connect with their representative government. Currently we exist just at the federal level. And so this photo that you see here is where we were actually ideated and where the ball initially started getting rolling. This is at the second annual Congressional Hackathon, where developers like myself got together with Hill staffers to discuss problems that are faced in government and what sort of solutions can be provided to assure that government and constituent relations can be improved. And if you look quite closely, you can see me in the center there standing by one of the whiteboards. So who am I? My background explains and gives a bit of color to what I think being in university provides in terms of an advantage for young companies. So I'll do a bit of like a personal introduction just to see a bit about me, but then more formally what professional experiences I was able to have as part of being a university startup or just general university students and how that colored my experience as an entrepreneur. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Represently. I'm from Des Moines, Iowa, and pretty proud of the Midwest and tech scene, so it's cool to have two of us on this call with Danny. Influencers that really drive me, and I strive to be like them, both in terms of adopting their thoughts and methodologies in some ways. First is Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz. So Mark Andreessen is somewhat the godfather of the internet. He created a browser called Mosaic that then grew into Netscape and was pretty fundamental in explaining in growing software as a service companies. Ben Horowitz, equally the same. He has a book that's sort of a trope book for entrepreneurs called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. Mark Zuckerberg, because seeing the way that he translates his vision into a company and how the execution of Facebook and their growth, plus working there, was pretty insightful for seeing how that translates into a day-to-day managerial sense. Andrew Ng and Jan LeCun are both artificial intelligence researchers, and we commercialize some of the technologies that they create and produce into our products. So I look up to them as the forefathers of our commercialized technologies. Outside of that type of stuff, I like hockey, software as a sales, startups, bad data science funds, and running. Now professionally, what got me to where I'm doing this day to day, and what does that give you as a university entrepreneur? So first and foremost, being in university provides the opportunity for what I like to say, an individual to rapidly prototype their career. A lot of people that want to be entrepreneurs or are currently entrepreneurs perhaps don't necessarily know where the need exists. They know they have general interests, but they're not sure what company they could build around those interests or where to start or what exact enterprise is needed. And so to that I say you're incredibly fortunate if you're in a university, because internships are nothing but a terminal commitment to saying, hey, I know that I want to explore a field in this or a job in X field. Now let me see if X field is something I'm interested in. And so to demonstrate that, you can see a bit about how I bounced around a bit. So I used to work, or intern rather, in the U.S. Senate, and I saw from the government side of things how relationships were handled. I did a brief stint in the public sector doing economic trade analysis at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, where I saw using applied econometric analysis and just general technical skills. I then went to the private sector, and I saw the way that PR companies and just general advertising monetizes, and seeing that at a firm called Fleischer & Hillard, the world's third largest PR firm, and I was up in New York for that. And then I went to formally into technology, and Facebook's government politics team here in DC, and then I left there, of course, to build Represently, and I concurrently teach data science at General Assembly. And so you can kind of see that the disparate ideas here of where my own career and the things that I thought I was interested versus finding the bits and pieces of what I was interested in. I enjoy government and public service, but the rate of change of what's required, I think solutions need to go a bit faster. I use technologies from the experiences that I learned at Facebook and the way they leverage technology in government, and General Assembly, an innovative technology company where I teach data science, and monetize by using some of this PR knowledge. It's important to note that most of these experiences took place while I was in university in a temporary sense. And it was a no harm, no foul to say I'm going to be here for 3 or 9 months in some cases for some of these places, or more formally over a year, to say I want to see what this life is like. I went to George Washington University, and I still guest lecture as a part of their Masters of Data Science program, so I threw their logo in there. Now, that's good and well. Of course, this enterprise is not just me. Luke Baer is our co-founder, and he's on the right here. He's the CTO and runs day-to-day software development operations. I sit at the intersection of business development and some of the software development stuff. Small team, lots of hats, right? On the left, we have Tyler. Tyler leads our client engagement efforts, and he used to work on the Hill as well. And the important link between all of us is that we met in university. And so I'm going to touch a bit about how meeting in university and the resources provided to university entrepreneurs gives a huge leg up in a moment. Formally, what our company does is we address this problem that I think is best laid out by Rep. Kathy McMorris Rogers. And this is a pretty trope of a quote for civic tech entrepreneurs. What we're seeing is 19th century institution, which would be Congress in this case, often using 20th century technology to respond to 21st century problems. We need to change that. And so that's the impetus that I got for wanting to build the mission associated with Represently and try to create a better way. So what are we? We are a platform for anyone to be a civic influencer, verify their influence and say, I live in this district, there's this many people that also share my viewpoint, and then be able to advocate collectively, both in partnership with groups that represent their interests and as a individual people, such that lawmakers who receive on average about 4,000 bits of mail per day at the House of Representatives level can more easily parse and identify what it is that people are wanting from them, and they can be more effective representation. So both sides sort of win. We gained seed funding through the GW New Venture competition, the 2016 iteration of that. Now, what do I think being in university provides you as a listener here? 4 things. The first is that it gives you there's a certain amount of time. During university, individuals have incredible flexibility over their schedules. And that doesn't mean, of course, you aren't busy. You have classes, you have extracurriculars, you'd like to be social, you'd like to meet new friends. Those things are all congruent and supplemental to the ability to grow and build an enterprise. In fact, the fact that you can kind of schedule your classes at any time during the day, not necessarily just during 9 to 5 business hours, is incredibly precious. Second is, in university, you have a specific risk aversion. If you are building a company and that company fails, well, you just go to class the next day. I personally tried to build a company that handled mobile payment products for parking garages, and we found that when we tried to go to market, we had a really tough time trying to sell. And I didn't leave school for this. And then, just the next day, I was just like, all right, after trying at this for a while, now I'm just back to being student and only student until the next thing comes up. Funding. Many universities have business competitions. Danny touched on a lot of the opportunities that he was provided. We were seeded by the GW New Venture competition, and there's many others that are open to any university. For example, TCU, Princeton Tiger Fund, or Tufts all have programs. St. Louis University has one as well for any entrepreneur from any university to gain access to capital equity free, which is basically free money that you get to put towards your enterprise. The third thing is talent. Universities are a hotbed of ambitious people that are diverse and have a particular gift. And they're unparalleled in this regard. That's why, for example, Gary is able to commercialize technologies from Creighton's medical school into a broader commercial application. The same is true even at the undergraduate level of a just strong collection of diverse people with great interests. The last is access. You can sort of play the student card in terms of wanting to learn more about whether it's a C-level executive that you're trying to reach out to via email or you're seeking mentors. You'll find that people are incredibly more amicable and responsive and helpful if you know that I'm doing this for the purposes of education, I'm a current student, and I want to take advantage of your expertise. There's nothing better than someone that is more senior having you pad their ego and say, hey, you know a lot about this thing. Can you help me with this thing? And you'll see good results. Now, these aren't just words. We have specifically taken advantage of those exact things. We're in seed funding through the GW New Venture competition, so that addresses the funding point I noted. Our founders are all university students. In fact, all of us have met by a university connection. Our mentors are all built through university connections or from cold email. So one of our current Board of Advisors, Bob Smith, used to work in the civic tech space, and we met him via GW's Entrepreneur Network of Advisors. So with that, I will turn it back over to Robbie. I welcome your questions about what it means to be a universal entrepreneur. Of course, I can speak pretty directly to the undergraduate level, as well as just general questions about our company, but the focus here is on general best practices for growing and sustaining an enterprise. So thanks so much for listening, and looking forward to doing what I can to help you.
Okay, thank you very much, Joseph, and thank you to the other two presenters as well. Those are some fantastic presentations, and I can't wait to read some of the questions. So let's get to the first one. Just so you know, these questions are pretty flexible. So the panelists will either 1, 2, or 3 panelists will answer, depending on how many of them feel personal connections to the question. So the first question is, can anyone touch upon intergenerational relationships and how such added insight with regard to perspectives can affect entrepreneurship? Probably.
Yeah, sure. I think that's an interesting question. This is Danny here from Fathom. I think it's an interesting question probably for 2 different sides of the coin here. So myself, being a young entrepreneur and being someone that's just out of college, there's a big aspect of going to talking to whether it's investors or customers, really anybody, of maybe them not trusting you because they see you as a young individual, someone who might not have a lot of experience. So something that we tried very hard to do is find older individuals in the startup world, and anywhere they call it kind of like finding gray hair, finding people that have experience, have been through issues that you haven't had to deal with, and being able to work with them kind of hand in hand as advisors so that they can help you identify what those issues might be going forward and plan so that you can avoid them. That's a big part of having a startup as a young person, is finding older people that can help you along the way.
Okay, great. Let's go on to the next question then. So the next, okay, so let's, okay. So basically, I have another question. So I also had a question here. How important was it to the people, to those of you who, okay, all right, here, we have a question up here. Did you use any of the resources provided by the SBA, in particular the SCORE program? If so, to what degree did it facilitate your ability to hone business skills, as well as cultivate relationships to build business?
This is Gary. I did not use those resources, no.
Okay, then did anyone mindfully choose not to use those resources, and was there a reason why not?
Well, for me, I didn't even know they were available, so it wasn't anything I would avoid or anything. I just didn't know about it.
Oh, okay. Do you have personal experience to, like maybe other people that you know that use them and succeeded with them, or like what's your perspective on them? It's okay if you don't have experience with them. That's okay.
I really don't know anything about them.
Yeah, okay. I guess better advertising would definitely help a lot of entrepreneurs in that respect. Yeah, I guess we'll move on to the next question then. As you developed your business plan and grew your business, can you provide insight on how you consider local resources as part of your supply chain? Do you manufacture your products in the USA? Please elaborate on your decision.
Yeah, I can kind of speak to that one. We're a hardware company. We have tried as thoroughly as we can to include local resources as part of our supply chain. So whether it's been sourcing parts, which sometimes gets very difficult when you're working and trying to source hardware and tech pieces, even in the U.S. itself, that can get kind of tricky. So that kind of goes back and forth. But as far as like getting labor, and so manufacturing, part of manufacturing is assembling a product. So we're working with companies in Western Michigan to help facilitate that and manufacture our products moving forward. So there are a lot of different facets of manufacturing, and some of those are just much harder to find in the U.S., but we're trying to incorporate as much U.S. resources from labor or hardware pieces as possible.
Yeah, this is Gary. We were fortunate that we were funded by the state of Nebraska to put a pilot plant for manufacturing nanomedicine here on campus. So we're definitely going to build our company here in the U.S. We currently manufacture everything in this pilot plant. We're going to continue to expand that. So yes, we're going to definitely manufacture, and we would probably also do our clinical trials here in the Midwest as well. The work that we've done in humans with our skincare products was done just up the street at a suntan salon. So we're definitely locally based.
Okay, fantastic. All right, let's move on to the next question then. Okay, for any one of you or all of you, were there any features or resources that you wish your ecosystem had but that were missing? So this could be your entrepreneurial ecosystem, or maybe right outside of, this could be within your university or maybe right outside your university, whatever you feel like best answers your question, or answers the question. So like, for example, Joseph, I know you started your company right outside of the hackathon. Were there any specific things that you wish, like other events that supported your kind of startup or something like that, like another type of hackathon, or something like that?
Sure. So I mean, I suppose that thinking about our ecosystem, that kind of gets into the broader question of what are some of the biggest challenges you faced initially, and therefore what resources do you think would have best alleviated those initial challenges? For us, and I'll try to speak to the general ones first before the specifics. For generally, one of the most important challenging things to consider, especially if you've won seed funding in some capacity, is thinking about articles of incorporation, operating agreements, legal concerns, privacy agreements if you're an online company, or even if not, any user data you're collecting, and resolving any type of barriers you have to entry for sales. And so those all kind of fall into this regulatory, legal compliance bucket. And legal costs are just out of pocket, quite high. Nonetheless, there's law firms that partner with venture-based companies. So for example, we're based in DC. Fish and Richardson is a DC-based law firm that has a program where if you pitch them your startup and they enjoy it, they will take 1% equity for free legal fees. And they're one of the top patent firms in the US. And so the knowing about resources for particularly incorporation, legal, privacy, and barriers to entry is something that we have systemically found to be one of the things that we wish we'd found out and done earlier. A second thing is some of the things that we've been fortunate to figure out that would perhaps grease the wheels for others, and these things came out of the new venture competition or otherwise, are connections to mentors or being engaged in the industry in which we operate. So for example, the returns you get from attending community events related to your given enterprise, whether you're in medical technology and that's trade fair shows or meeting with others, or research conferences and things like that, there is some level of benefit of being sure that you're engaged with those in your respective field. Now, I would caution that too much talk and not enough action on the side of building the product is a wary place to be. Nonetheless, engaging with your community in a broader sense, which of course needs context localized to what you're doing. There's the common thread between each of our ventures that we've each done that. So Danny, for example, is engaged pretty firmly with the Grand Rapids Accelerator. and I'm sure he would tell about how that led to their advisors and mentors, et cetera. It sounds like Gary was able to work directly through his network of the Creighton Medical School and commercialize those technologies. For us, that was working in DC Civic Tech circles. So I think of ecosystem as referring to that network and thinking about what events you should be a part of and attending those events and whom you should reach out to is what I would note for the two pieces, legal and events related to your venture.
Great. Thank you for the response, Joseph. Let's move on to the next question. So this is actually directed at Joseph and Represently. How are you partnering with existing NPOs and grassroots organizations? How are you measuring impact? What is your return of investment to date?
Yeah, great question. So the way that advocacy works right now is those groups that have audiences that they want to activate. So happily, let's say you have ARC, which is a group that advocates for individuals with disabilities. If there's something like a threatened legislation like ACA repeal that threatens some of their interests, they activate their group of people that care deeply and passionately about the funding for disability advocacy initiatives. And so that is the status quo. Unfortunately, what happens is lawmakers, particularly at the federal level, cannot identify signal from noise based on the constituent advocacy that they receive. In other words, when they receive some given information, they don't know if that information came from someone that is from their district, if it was actually generated by them, or if it was by a bot, or if that person is even a real person. And so it's really unfortunate that you have a situation where you have a lot of people that are passionate about a given issue, an advocacy group that is going to bat for them in DC, and lawmakers aren't able, to the best of their ability, to understand what their constituents want. So what we do is we're able to add transparency to this process and identify people as real people through a number of means and help them be represented effectively to groups and to lawmakers alike. So everyone gains from this level of transparency. So the partnerships look to be a bit more specific. Partners will either do one of the two things. They will provide us with a existing base of users that they have or people that they engage, and they will ask that we can figure out the influence of those people or verify them or assure that the voices that they're hearing are legitimate and should be represented. Or they will ask us to identify influencers that they should be continue to reach out to. And that's not necessarily mutually exclusive. Some groups like us to do both. We measure impact based on relative to the way the organization measures impact. So organizations, it depends. Some of them, their goal is to grow their number of audiences. Some of them, it's to have people identify who should meet with a given state legislative official. For some, it is simply just activating people in a way that they want. And the ROI depends, of course, on which measure you take in terms of ROI, but it also depends on, so we measure on CPMs, the cost per 1,000 impressions that you can gain from a given issue. Depends on which issue you're working in. Some issues have a pretty niche amount of interest and CPMs are quite high. Other industries have a lower CPM and depends, therefore, in the same way that, like, think when you use Google AdWords, different AdWords cost you a different amount. Like mesothelioma AdWords cost a high amount because lawyers pay a lot for those words, but perhaps a word like baseball costs a little amount on AdWords. And that's the way that our pricing works, and the ROI is tied to those specific terms or usage that a group is passionate about.
Okay, great. Thank you for the in-depth response. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, what has your university done that was the most helpful for you to start your company? So this could be directed at, whoever wants to answer this.
Sure. So Danny here from Fathom. I think one of the most important parts of working with the university or working with your college and starting your company, your startup while you're in school is a lot of really the resources that you can gain from using that university. So for us, for example, that's super important because we're a hardware-based product. So a lot of what we were doing was making things, and the tools used to make things are expensive. So we didn't have access, or we didn't have our own, drill presses and band saws and things like that. So using the resources of the engineering department, specifically for us, I think was one of the most helpful things that we had. Using the facilities to store all our prototyping wares and helping keep track of what we were doing was really, really important for us, so that we weren't working out of someone's bedroom or something. We had space and we had tools that we could use thanks to our college.
Okay, great. Thank you for your response. Let's go to the next one. So we have a lot of questions here from you guys, so we want to get to as many as possible. What is your company's philosophy on social responsibility? Would you touch upon diversity in your company as well as partnerships?
I'm happy to talk about this one. Company's responsibility on social responsibility. So I am working on a company that helps people be better represented in their government. And we find that to be, there's different ways to monetize companies in that space. And we see a trend of companies in this space being a bit that we think incongruent between what socially helps someone be represented and what monetarily helps someone be represented. So not to name any companies in particular, but some companies will, for example, simply provide someone the feeling of like they are making a difference without actually having that individual be better represented in their government. And we seek to use our platform as a way to be valuable to both sides of the equation, such that both lawmakers and people are able to understand and communicate more effectively. And we monetize only in ways that are congruent with that mission. On diversity has been a tough point for our company. We have a small team right now, and it's 3 of us. We are actively recruiting for other strategists and software development positions. And in an industry where roughly 18% of computer science majors are female, it has been incredibly challenging for us to actively recruit from that discipline. What have we done to try to counter that? We've worked through a lot of Women Who Code meetups throughout the U.S. We've actively looked for hackathon winners that come from underrepresented groups to try to reach out and have them be interested in our company. And we understand that the case with diversity is that it's a bit of a snowball. So if you don't look into doing something early, it only becomes increasingly harder to try to change the needle in one direction. So what do we do on that initiative is we are the first thing is that you measure it, and the second thing is you act accordingly to try to measure it. And so we, both in social responsibility and in terms of diversity, work quite hard the best we can to assure we have a well-represented company doing things that we think, of course, are socially positive.
Okay, great, thank you. So with that answer, we're gonna wrap up the Q&A session. If you could, if Archie could throw over the screen share over to me, and I'll finish up with a couple of announcements. So first of all, I'd like to thank the panelists for their speaking tonight. They've been great, and I'd like to thank the audience for being here. If you enjoyed this and you can make it to DC on the 20th, please come down for the last day of our 3-day conference. And this day is special because this is the day where entrepreneurs get to directly speak with staffers from congressional offices. There will be a panelist talk from university interns that will be given from about 9 to 12 in the morning. So if you're interested, please email support@nset2.org or go to nset2.org for the agenda. It'll be great to see some of you down there. There will be plenty of other people, and it'll be a great opportunity to expand your network and talk to people who are concerned about entrepreneurship and policy. Now, we also, regarding this actual conference, we're sending around a survey that will hopefully allow us to get responses that can be meaningful for congressional representatives and their staffers. And the best way we can do that is to get your input. So if you're involved in entrepreneurship in any way, please fill out this survey. It takes about 5-10 minutes maximum if you're really taking your time on the questions. It would mean a whole lot to us because this gives us meaningful data that we can present to staffers. If you or your startup or your university startups need congressional representation, if you would like to see a policy change. If you're not even sure about policy changes that need to be made, please fill out the survey. We really want to hear your feedback. That would be fantastic. And lastly, we'd like you to know that this is a series. We're taking a slight break in terms of weekly webinars. Next week and the week after are not going to have webinars, but in May we're going to have a bunch more for you guys, just because we're busy with the conference right now. So while we'd love to do more, we're gonna hold off till May, and we'd love to see you at the conference in the meantime. And thank you very much for sticking around, and hope you have a wonderful day.